mic right. Ooh, because this is one of the hardest tasks. This is one of the hardest tasks right here, boy. Trying to get this mic on point because you don't want it to be too far. God damn, nothing's going right. Nothing's going right. Yellow diamonds look like PP. Why's up? It's your brother. It's your cousin. It's your uncle. It's your nephew. Your friend. But it can't be your son. It's your kinfolk. William Jewell. Giving you my detail as I articulate. This is articulating. Rap, rap, rap. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn all the notifications on so you can get all the new posts, all the new content when I make them. I just came here to articulate and give you my detailed point of view from up close and far away from a telescopic and microscopic lens, right? Because it's a lot that's been going on during this news cycle. It's a lot to talk about, and I'm I'm mad at myself. I forgot to talk about the new single from the Clipse. I'm mad I wasn't able to share my thoughts on the article uh about what Pusha T was saying about the current situation. Malice as well. So we know that the album is coming on July the 11th, right? Let's just cut straight to the chase. Let's get straight to the meat, bones, gravy, mashed potatoes, all that type of stuff. Because, you know what I'm saying? Clips, Pusha T, Malice, they're they're legends in this game as a duo. I think Pusha T is a reputable, remarkable MC. He's a respectable guy. And he has the battle scars and he has the stripes to prove it, right? Especially with his back and forths with Cash Money throughout the years, Young Money throughout the years, Lil Wayne and Drake. And they just released the new single for their upcoming album, Let God Sort 'Em Out. Ace Trumpets. Yellow Diamonds look like PP. And when I think about people comparing the Malice verse to the Pusha T verse, it's like they're trying to say that Malice had the better verse. But to me, no. I feel like they're on equal grounds. They're on equal playing field. I feel like just to hear somebody that you haven't heard that much or that often and not recently, I believe their voice and the way they rap has more of an impact than somebody that's been a little bit more current and a little bit more steady in the industry. Like a voice that's rare, that doesn't appear often on hip hop. That voice is more valuable. So I think people see No Malice or Malice, whoever you want to call him, whatever you want to call him. I think they see him as a more valuable voice, more rare voice because we don't hear from him often. But I'm always riding with Pusha T just because I like his energy, right? Just because I liked how he started off the flow. And then sometimes Pusha, when you listen to most of their stuff, I was just going back in the discography. Pusha T usually always has the first verse. So sometimes that last verse, that second verse, is you're in a better position to captivate. You're in a better position to use that first verse and go off of that type of energy. So I feel like the person who has the last verse, the second verse, or not the first verse, always has the advantage because they're the next person to be heard. But there comes their advantages with the first verse. So I liked Ace Trumpets. I like Ace Trumpets. I like Pharrell on the production. Definitely a hip hop vibe. Definitely something that you can just work out to. You can just ride to. I don't know how you're gonna hear it in the club as often because of that brick talk, because of that cocaine talk. But as far as just lyricist performance of the lyrics and just overall aura and presence on the mic and just legendary status, I think Pusha T, Malice, and Pharrell capture that, on Ace Trumpets. Especially the hook is not a chanting hook, not a hook that you would think would even be, you know, placed as a hook. It sounds like a verse. Ballerinas doing pirouettes under my snow globe. Like, come on, something like that. Just getting that talk off, that luxury rap talk. That high elite, grown man music off. Because to me, it's not just coke talk. It's not just drug talk. To me, it's luxury rap. It's grown man talk, and it's just braggadocious, just giving somebody confidence. So I really like what they doing. And then we go a step further. We go to the interview, right? And the interview was very telling. I'm not gonna read the article, but I'll paraphrase the article. So no, this is not Pusha T's words word for word, but I just want to touch on some of the key points that he kind of iterated during this interview. And the main thing was, hey, they're getting off Def Jam, right? They bought their contract out, and one thing and one reason why they bought the contract out is because of the Kendrick Lamar verse. Who knew one verse would mess up the whole game? But I don't think it's because of the Kendrick Lamar verse. I think it's because of the principle. I think it's because of when Pusha got into the beef with Drake, he was removed his from Rick Ross's album on Maybach Music 6. I think it's because he was removed from Pop Smoke's album. I think it's because another time they're questioning the release of a song and a single from Pusha T because it has the likes of him and Kendrick Lamar, Drake's main antagonist, on there, and they're in the lawsuit. They're in the muddy waters. And even if you want to blame it on the lawsuit, right? Drake was able to make those calls in the past. So if there wasn't at a lawsuit with them, I believe that Drake would try to make a call again to see what lyrics they were saying, to see what they wanted to change. And I was just listening to what DJ Head said about his knowledge of this, right? Right, the West Coast Guard. He was saying that they wanted Kendrick to change a lot in that verse, not just a little bit. They wanted him to change a lot. So I think just of those two, three things compiled together, I think Pusha T realized, and especially with the lawsuit going on, especially with, the back and forth between Drake and Kendrick from last year, I think Pusha T realized that UMG wasn't going to be the best way to release this album, to really have the free expression and the artistic ability to voice and speak on what you want to speak on and not have to worry about people trying to censor you. Right, when we go back to censoring, they were saying that on the whacked out murals, when Kendrick was censoring himself, he was also sending a message to the record labels and saying they were trying to censor him. So that's why there are some blank spots on whacked out murals. But so the fact that Pusha T, they had to spend 7 figures to get out of a record deal, and 7 figures he realized if Clipse is going to be out of the record deal and he's still signed with Def Jam, he needs to be out of the record deal too. From what I understand, they shopped the album around in less than 24 hours. They was able to sign with Rock Nation, and my understanding, they shopped the album without even including the Kendrick verse, because the Kendrick verse wasn't even knowledgeable like industry wide. They knew, he knew, but everybody didn't know about it. So they wanted to let record labels know they were a force on their own. The Kendrick verse is just a little sprinkle on top, just a little cherry and whipped cream that the fans can eat up. But when we talk about Pusha T, because the thing is, I want to include No Malice to the conversation, but we know Pusha T is the main character in the Clipse. And not just because he's the better rapper, it's because he's the more prominent one. He's the more boisterous one. He's the one that's more outspoken. He's the little brother, but he seems like more of the leader of the bunch. He carried the torch. He carried it while Malice was out. While he was busy, serving God and giving God the glory and trying to stay outside of the wickedness of rap. He was trying to stay outside the evils and the perils and the damage that it could cause to your spirit when you recite these type of lyrics. Right? Because we know it's damning. We know it's sometimes spiritual warfare when it comes to music, right? And when we harken back to Reincarnated and how Kendrick showed himself reincarnated in three different people. The last person, Kendrick Lamar, he used his gifts for evil to manipulate the people. And I believe No Malice kind of felt that going on, and now he realizes he got to make that money. He got to make that bread. And at the same time, he got to make history. He got to make a comeback. He got to get his respect back. It's a lot of things that come into that. And one of the main things that probably is on his mind is getting a nice bag and getting a nice reward, accolades, and recognition for some music. Because even if he was dropping Christian music, I don't think was people was paying attention to it, but now that he's with Pusha T, everybody's glad and rejoicing that they're back together. So I think it's crazy that Drake was stopping records from happening. I think that's salty. I think that's unfair. I think that's a poor sportsmanship, because when we talk about the landscape of hip hop, when we talk about the architect, the foundation, it's built up on competitive nature, and for you to silence the competition because you don't like who you have to compete against, I believe like that's just feminine. That's not masculine. That's not manly. And you got to understand, Drake, you're one of the biggest artists. You got some of the biggest hits. Pusha T, he's not that known, because you still was successful after the beef with Pusha T. You still been successful after the beef with Kendrick. So what is a couple more jabs? What's a couple more shots, subliminals, whatever? What's just a couple of more conversations being had on this that's gonna really hurt you, more than you've already been hurt, because you've hurt yourself. You've been self-inflicted wounds with this lawsuit, with some of the actions that you partook in after the beef, after things subsided, with some of the music that you released, with some of the effort that you've given the fans. We looked at you differently. We still do look at you differently, because you've kind of shown your true character. You've exposed your soul. We seen that your spirits has some black spots on them. I don't know Drake personally, but based on what I see what I see, and I can't unsee it. I'm just trying to tell you what I saw in 2024. And I don't even want to get on the Kanye West. He doesn't see him as a man. I don't even want to get on that, because I don't really even want to talk about Kanye. Like, he knows that I can't front. He knows that I can't lie to him. He has good intuition. He knows that I can't fake it with him. He knows I don't think that he's a man. That's what Pusha T said about Kanye. That's what he said about Kanye. He knows. He knows what's best for me. Like, and just, being the president of good music and having somebody that held you accountable like Pusha T, and then taking them for granted, and then going out and saying blasphemy, blast, and just saying just bad things about them. Like, how do you think he was going to take it? How do you think he was going to feel about that, Kanye? So it's like the same thing Kanye did with Big Sean. It's like the same thing Kanye done with all the other people. He plays the victim card when he's the one doing the real betraying, when he's the one doing the real sabotaging, when he's doing the real defaming. Like, Kanye West, you're no longer a victim. You're an enemy of the state. You're a casualty of war, and you're a casualty to your own narcissistic nature. You're a casualty to your own self. Another wounded veteran that's been self-inflicted. Another wounded person. Another wounded spirit, another spirit with black spots on it. And we can tell that it's been blemished, but it's nothing too dark for God to brighten up. But for the moment that y'all all been waiting for, right? For the moment that y'all all been waiting for, we got to talk Wheezy. We got to talk the Carter 6. We got to talk C6 because a lot of y'all been coming out of the woodworks hating. A lot of y'all have just been following the bandwagon, voicing the same opinions that others have been voicing. A lot of y'all don't even think for yourselves. A lot of y'all listen to the podcast of other people and take whatever opinion they have as gospel instead of formulating your own opinion. And a lot of us are in denial. A lot of us love Wayne too much. A lot of us show favoritism towards him, and we can't really just look at him with those type of eyes. We can't really turn our back on him. We can't really forget the nostalgia that he given us from the mixtape Wheezy back in the 2008, 2007, 6, 5, 4, 3 era. We just can't forget about young Wayne. Before the receding headline, before all the face tats were filled and covered his face, before he had blonde in his dreadlocks, before he was just a young man that was separated from the group of the hot boys, and he was the only one left. Yeah, I think it's time we talk about that Wayne. I think it's time we talk about that Wheezy. We got to talk about Dwayne Michael Carter Jr. He was stunned like his daddy. Weezy F baby, please say the baby. We got to think about our childhood, our adolescence, teenagers, riding around with the latest mixtapes of Wayne. We got to think about the times that we were in the athletic weight room and they was playing the Carter 1 on the speakers, along with T.I., along with Jeezy, along with the revolutionary Southern artists that brought Southern music to the forefront. And Wayne was one of those guys that not only showed that Southern rappers could make hit songs, but they could be the best rappers of a generation, that they could be influential, that they could be impactful, that they could be lyrical, that they could have some subject matter, right? And then when we think about C6, right, we got to think about where Wayne is at his point of life, right? When we think about C6, we got to think about prior to the release, on the thoughts and feelings that the world had about Wayne before he even released this album. We got to think about all the crying and whining that he did, although it didn't come off as he shed a tear. But when he complained about Kendrick getting the Super Bowl performance in New Orleans, and he felt like he worked hard enough and he needs to work a little bit more, that he was disappointed, right? When Wayne came out and said that the Carter 6 was coming out on June 6th as a commercial for lotion during the Super Bowl, we had to question him, right? When Wayne was on the stage jamming Not Like Us, when he was supposed to be one of the affiliates of Drake, associates, one of Drake's big brothers, when we talk about him saying he didn't even know Not Like Us was a diss song towards Drake. Right, we got to think about these things. We got to put all of these things into the forefront, because this is what happened prior to the release of the Carter 6. Right, we got to think about the Drake stands being upset with Wayne for not defending their leader, their general. We got to think about the Kendrick stands for being upset what Wayne said about Kendrick, and what Wayne said about somebody who idolized him and showed him nothing but reverence his whole career. We got to think about all those things, because all those things have led up into some of the bad reviews, some of the disrespect online, right? Some of the naysayers, some of just people who just want to talk down just to be in the public eye and get views. Right? But I'm not one of those persons. That's what I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not one of those persons. 19 tracks I didn't approve of. I didn't approve of, because y'all know that I believe that you can deliver a good album with 12 to 14 tracks. And if he would have limited, even took off 5 to 7 songs and made this album a little bit more cohesive, right, then this album could have sounded a lot better cohesively, right? I do feel like Wayne was experimenting a little bit, although I feel like he's too far in his journey to experiment. But I also think he tackled this project like Drake tackles projects, right? Like some of the artists putting a playlist together, like SZA tackled SOS, right? Like people are starting to put out those track list albums. When you have different fan bases, you got your skateboarders, you got your hard hip hop heads, then you just got your people in between that like Wayne for the popular music that he puts out. I think he tried to cater to pretty much all spectrums of his fan base, right? And I don't think that he did that cohesively. I don't think he structured and curated that album to where it sounded sonically pleasing to everybody from all demographics. I think that's kind of where he missed the mark, right? But you think about Young Money, even though Tiger's on this tour, Tiger was not even on this album with him. Right, he had his two sons, and that's very admirable of him. That's very unselfish of him, and that's very bold. And I'm proud of him for including his sons and trying to push his sons forward. Lil Novi, Cameron Carter. I'm thankful for Wayne, and as a father, I get inspiration from that. But as a listener, as a fan who just wanted Wayne at his prime, who just wanted Wayne to do what he did without much help, because he never needed much help, I didn't get that, right? I mean, I did like the feature from Jay Jones on Hip Hop with Big X the Plug. I did like that, even though, I didn't know who Jay Jones was, but Jay Jones did sound good and he rapped very well. Right, but when I came into this album, I did not come into this album with expectations. I came into this album with hope, because when we think about the Carter 5 Deluxe, when we think about Funeral, when we think about the Fix Before the Six, when we think about the EPs in between that Wayne has released before the Carter Six, and in between the Carter Five and Carter Six, when we think about the solo projects that he's done, we gotta say like, what else would you expect, right? What else would you expect when what he did exactly what you would expect if you've listened to what he's done recently. And so what he's done recently, I feel like I kind of expected this in essence, but I hoped for the best. And let me say, this is not a bad album. This is not a bad album. I think this is okay album. This is not a mid album, but this is a medium album, right? A medium album, like a lukewarm album. And the Bible says it's not good to be lukewarm. You either need to be cold or you need to be hot. But for me, in my house, and just my reverence for Wayne, I don't think this album was trash. And why I don't think this album was trash, because he was still showing his ability to rap. He was still showing his ability to put words together. A lot of people were not happy with the production choices that he made, and understandably so. But even from Band and NO, or other songs like Bells, you could hear that he was catering towards that Louisiana bounce, that Big Frida type of sound. That's where the flip of those samples were coming from. And sometimes I feel like when people from the East Coast listen to East Coast samples that are flipped to Southern styles, I don't think they have appreciation for that. I do think that the beats were a little bit more hollow. The instrumentation was kind of lacking a little bit. And let me not get started on Peanuts to an Elephant. I believe the song where he was going in all in on auto tune, I think that was a song that I didn't like. The guitar song that was kind of like How to Love. If I was a guitar or like a guitar, I think that song was. I didn't hate that song. I knew exactly what he was doing with that song. So I didn't hate that song. I didn't hate at the experiments or at the ways he was trying to like cultivate or galvanize both all of his fan bases together for them to enjoy this album. So I think the lyrics of this album was there. As far as the production goes, it wasn't one of my favorite production wise albums, but him rapping at an elite level made the production better than it was. The production did not enhance him, but there was no solid chemistry. There was no cohesion with the production and his voice at times. And I think that's where it hurt him. I think when we talk about the overall project, when we talk about the features like Big X the Plug, the features of Jelly Roll, the features of Big Sean, when we talk about those features, they do help this album. So I feel like he did a great job with selecting some of the features. When we talk about his sons, I don't even count that his sons as features. I feel like he did a favor to his sons, he did a favor to his family, and he did a favor to his ego as well. So I'm not mad at that by any means. But when we talk about the Carter Six and the prestigious name and weight that the Carter holds, I don't think that this was a good album to stamp as one of his, Carters. He could have named this album something else, right? But I say that to be fair. I say all those things to be nice, right? And it's not that I'm in denial, right? I made a post on Twitter saying that this was subpar. And if Wayne continues to release these subpar solo projects, then it does do something to his legacy. It's enough for us that he does the features, that he releases music, that he's current in the hip hop landscape. But there's another thing when you go out by yourself and you release these type of projects, and they don't land well to the consumer's ear. They're not digestible as a Wayne song would be. So it did hurt me a little bit, you know, when I listened to this album and then I listened to the old Wayne. It's just something about the spirit, and that remains to be the main theme to me. It's something about the soulfulness. No matter how many samples, no matter how many cries on a beat that you can get out of your production, no matter what you do, it's just something about your spirit, your hunger, your eagerness to be on top, like that we can feel through your music, and we can feel it through how you're saying these things. And although the lyrics was there, I felt some type of emptiness. I felt the empty calories. None of these lyrics held weight because the substance wasn't there. And at one point, Wayne could give us substance. At one point, Wayne was rapping about something, but now, as he's gotten older, as he's shifted towards the mainstream, has shifted towards the pop side, although sometimes the billboards and the pop charts don't reflect it, although he's mentally shifted towards that side, like it doesn't reflect it doesn't reflect in the artistry. And it just gives us empty calories. The lyrics are empty calories. Great lyrics, but they don't mean anything. And as a 40 plus year old man with kids in this world, with ups and downs, like he could have given us a little bit more lyrically. And it's not that, I expect Wayne to give us grown man music all the time or anything like that. But I do feel like he did miss an opportunity of diving into not being chosen for the Super Bowl, just like even Kendrick dove into him being selected for the Super Bowl. I think he missed an opportunity to really showcase what he could do, and he just kind of used his name and his brand to put this album out, and the name of the Carter, and he sacrificed that name. And I don't think that sacrificial lamb will give him the blessings that God intended for him. So, man, shout out to Wayne. It's kind of bittersweet. You know, I like the album. I don't love it. I respect Wayne, but I still have hope for him to do better. It's your brother, it's your cousin, it's your uncle, it's your nephew, it's your friend, but it can't be his son. It's your kinfolk, William Jewell. Giving you my detail as I articulate. This is articulating rap, rap, rap.